Hey, slave, take care of the dry cleaning. Laughing, my husband Robbie threw his suit at me, further insulting me. Hitting me with the suit, water also spilled. Ah, clean that up. And bring me some fresh water, quick. Drunk or not, it must have been his true feelings. Robbie really thought of me as a slave. I threw the suit into the bag with all my might. Then, I noticed something sticking out of the suit's pocket. Picking it up, I unfolded a small piece of paper. If he wants it out, I'll take it out. More than wondering why this was here, it felt like a ticket to freedom. I felt liberated from all my frustrations and grievances towards Robbie. I left the house right then and there and submitted that divorce petition to the court. My name is Nancy. I am 50 years old with two children. My eldest is Scarlett, and her younger brother, Oliver. I never got along with Robbie's parents from the time we started dating. It seemed I was disliked, but still I loved Robbie and thought I could be happy with him. My parents were worried and opposed the marriage, but I pushed through and got married. After that, we started living in a small apartment. But Robbie seemed unhappy that I went against my parents' wishes to marry him. Did you really have to leave your parents to get married? He would always say, like nagging. We had a good reason to rush our marriage. Scarlett was already on the way. Of course, Robbie knew this too. The very reason my parents opposed the marriage was because Robbie didn't show up for a proper family meeting. But I don't blame Robbie for that. I have my faults, and I never liked Robbie's parents, who always had criticisms. Right now, we should only be thinking about our unborn child, not blaming each other or regretting the past. We'll never know now. If we're happy, our parents will come to accept us, I always said, trying to calm Robbie. Yet, Robbie kept on berating me, saying he wished we hadn't married or that I was a worse cook than his mother. Having eloped, I had no home to return to and endured Robbie's complaints daily. Yet, Robbie was fond of the kids. Scarlett takes after Nancy, which is a shame, but Oliver looks like me and is handsome. He was particularly indulgent with our son Oliver, always pleased with himself. Though he added unnecessary comments, I knew he cared for Scarlett too. We were cautious with his words, but our children kept us bound, allowing our marriage to continue. By the time the kids were in high school, Robbie had been promoted to manager. Our relationship was far from good, barely conversing unless necessary. We were barely holding together as a family. However, Robbie had a good public face, trusted by his employees. He often brought colleagues home, including a man named Daniel and a woman named Sally. After meeting them several times, I remembered them, and they were always nice to me. The manager can work with ease because of the wonderful partner at home. Starting with them, colleagues would say this to show respect to Robbie. It's nothing like that. Yeah, I can divorce any time, but she won't let me. One day, I frowned at Robbie's words. Those were the words that came from Robbie. It was clear that this was Robbie's true sentiment. But being able to joke about it is a sign of a good relationship. I'm envious. Matching Daniel's joke, I forced a laugh. Robbie's laughter was irritating, and I was furious. Flattered, Robbie got carried away, always saying the eldest son is handsome like him. He could have married a more beautiful wife, but drew the short straw and so on, looking down on me and repeating things that made him feel good until he passed out drunk. After that, everyone helped clean up. Sorry for always imposing. It's fine, just leave it as it is. No, we're always grateful to the manager for everything. Even then, everyone was considerate and said such things to me. As we were all getting along and cleaning up, Sally spoke up. Manager, earlier you might have said that, but at the good company. You always speak highly of Nancy." "Really? I can't believe it." When I laughed and said that, Sally also said, "It's true. You always say how great the family gets along. The CEO was even impressed by that." "The CEO?" "Yes. The CEO values family and always says that we should learn from the manager, who always praises his family. You're respected for that. Jokes like earlier wouldn't work without a strong trust, right?" Sally seemed to be in a good mood and happily shared more about Robbie's behavior at work. If only that were true. I just muttered that with a forced smile. Trust? We had lost that between us long ago. I quickly realized that Robbie was simply saying such things to make himself look good. I've heard that a good liar mixes a bit of truth into their lies. Robbie must be deceiving people at work in exactly this way. Whether it's natural or calculated, I've come to truly despise Robbie for it. Using the family like that just didn't sit right with me. But the kids are still students. I want to send them to college. As Robbie says, thinking of the kids, I couldn't bring myself to divorce him. That said, Robbie has never brought up divorce. We just live without making waves. Even in such a life, the kids grew up honest and cheerful. They worked hard in their studies. Scarlett, after graduating from a local university, joined a company near our home and commutes from there. And 3 years later, Oliver, who had left home for college, got a job locally and came back home. I was honestly happy that the kids were coming back. And when both became working adults, it felt like we had finally settled down a bit. Even more happily, "Mom, I'm thinking of getting married." Scarlett, in her third year of working, reported to me. The partner is a colleague named Alexis Covey. He came for a family meeting, a well-mannered returnee who spent his childhood in Italy. He seemed very intelligent. Robbie was all for the marriage, and Scarlett immediately started preparing for it. The wedding was to be a casual garden wedding. For that, it seems a dress for me and a suit for Robbie would be fine. Still, wanting to cherish Scarlett's special day, I carefully chose my dress. I was thinking of getting Robbie a new suit, but he said he already had one that was fine. Reluctantly, I brushed the suit and repaired any frizz, looking forward to the wedding very much. Then, on the wedding day, blessed with good weather, the ceremony started, surrounded by lovely greens and flowers. Daniel and Sally, Robbie's colleagues who have been supportive since the old days and who adore Scarlett and Oliver, were attending, and I thanked them for their participation. At the reception, which was a standing party, I greeted Scarlett's friends and colleagues, spending a happy time. Robbie seemed to be enjoying himself, which is good, but as usual, after getting drunk, he started getting carried away. "Hey Nancy, bring me a drink," he commanded me. There was no need for me to fetch it. Waiters were making rounds. Just a look around would have sufficed, but he had to call out to me from afar, making it embarrassingly obvious. "Nancy, I'll go." Daniel and Sally covered for me, taking care of Robbie, especially Sally, who stuck by Robbie's side like a wife. I felt odd about it, but at the moment I was busy greeting other guests, so I left Robbie to them. It was a very nice ceremony. After the wedding concluded smoothly, Sally took care of a severely drunk Robbie until the end. When the taxi arrived, "Robbie, your taxi is here!" She called out to Robbie and helped him into the car. I also got into the taxi with her and spoke to her. "Sally, thank you for everything. Take care." "No, thank you. It looks like it's going to be a long night. Be careful." I laughed at her words, taking it as a reference to Robbie being drunk. However, her gaze was not on Robbie, but on me. I felt a sense of discomfort again, but I greeted her anyway and went home with Robbie. Oliver and Scarlett went to the after party, leaving just the two of us to return home. Robbie, having slept a bit in the taxi, and in a better mood, managed to walk into the house on his own when we arrived. Normally we don't talk much, but this night, especially since Robbie was more drunk than usual, he wouldn't stop talking. Finally, off our hands. Scarlett takes after you, so I was worried. But it's good she got married safely, Robbie said, mocking me as usual, and laid sprawled on the sofa. Nancy, water, he commanded arrogantly. I sighed inwardly as I went to get him water. Here's your water. If you're going to sleep, take off the suit. It'll get wrinkled, I said, placing the water on the table. Robbie, sitting up, said while taking off his suit, You really are useful. Always doing as you're told. Useful? That's no way to speak, even if you are drunk. Hey, slave, take care of the dry cleaning. Laughing, Robbie threw his suit at me, insulting me further, hitting me with the suit. Water also spilled. Ah, clean that up, and bring me some fresh water, quick. Drunk or not, it must have been his true feelings. Robbie really thought of me as a slave. At that attitude, I couldn't help but stand there, seething with anger. But the anger didn't last long. Standing in front of Robbie, who was now snoring loudly in his sleep, I suddenly felt indifferent. I realized I had become so indifferent to Robbie that I no longer felt love or even hatred towards him. Afterward, I mechanically picked up the suit. Somehow, his pants had also been taken off and were lying around, which I picked up. Going to the bedroom, facing the bag for dry cleaning, I felt irritation rising again. Angry, I threw the suit into the bag as forcefully as I could. That's when I noticed something sticking out of the suit's pocket. What? I muttered to myself, picking it up. Unfolding the small piece of paper, I covered my mouth in shock at what I saw. Then I remembered Sally's words about it being a long night. So that's what she meant. Realizing this, I couldn't help but smile. This means I'm free to file it, right? I noticed my voice dance with excitement. The piece of paper in front of me, which had come out of Robbie's suit pocket, was a divorce petition, already filled out by Robbie. Yes, that must be it. He wants it filed, so I'll file it. More than wondering why this was here, it felt like a ticket to freedom. I felt liberated from all my frustrations and grievances towards Robbie. It was still 5 p.m. The dry cleaner was still open. Carrying the dry cleaning and the divorce petition, I left the house. After dropping off the suit at the cleaner's, I headed straight to the courthouse. Please, I said with a smile, handing over the hastily completed divorce petition, and then headed home. I quickly packed my things, taking only what I needed and ignoring Robbie, still snoring away. I left the house. I stayed in a hotel for the time being, took a relaxing shower, and slept in a comfortable bed until morning. However, the next morning, my mobile phone had several missed calls, all from Robbie. When was the last time he called? We hardly spoke. If there was something, we would just text. It was surprising that my number was still in Robbie's mobile phone. Hello? Where are you? As I was pondering, another call came in. Reluctantly, I answered, and Robbie sounded panicked. He must have been surprised when he woke up and I wasn't there. After all, the spilled water was still there, enough to notice something was wrong in the house. Where, you ask? I'm at a hotel. Hotel? But we came home together, didn't we? The water is still spilled and your clothes are gone. What's going on? From his words, it was clear he didn't remember what he said yesterday. Sighing, I replied, the suit you told me to take to the cleaners had a completed divorce petition inside it. I thought that meant you wanted it filed, so I did, you know. Huh. What? What do you mean? Just what I said. I filed the divorce petition, so now we're strangers. Thanks for everything. As I said that, Robbie started yelling on the other end of the phone. What? What kind of unilateral decision is that? Do you even realize what you've done? I was surprised by his reaction, a bit taken aback, but no matter how much Robbie raged over the phone, it didn't bother me in the least. Jeez, you're so loud this morning. I'm about to enjoy a breakfast buffet, so goodbye. There's probably nothing to eat at home. No bread, no cereal. Scarlett is with Alexis at a hotel, given as a wedding gift. And Oliver probably won't be up until the afternoon, since he likely drank late into the night. Robbie must be panicking alone in a house without food. Thinking this, I savored a delicious breakfast. After finishing breakfast, I immediately went to look for an apartment at a real estate agent. There was no time to choose leisurely. I felt the need to find a place I could move into quickly, but fortunately I found an apartment just a few units away from Scarlett's new home. Furthermore, the real estate agent mentioned they were looking for a part-time staff member. I found both a home and a job on the same day and was very grateful to the company. On the way back to the hotel, I received a call from Oliver. "Mom, where are you? Ted's making a fuss." I had been ignoring calls from Robbie. So Robbie must have forcibly woken up Oliver to make him call me. Oliver sounded still half asleep, barely awake. I've divorced your father. I'm moving out, so take care, okay?" What? What do you mean, all of a sudden? Oliver sounded shocked by my words. Either way, I had to explain things properly to make sure the kids understood. I decided to call Scarlett and explain the situation at home that very day. Why the sudden call? Scarlett sounded anxious. Understandable. Just yesterday, she was at the peak of happiness, and now she was being called home. She would know it's not just small talk, being no child anymore. I felt sorry for her, but my parenting days were over. Though I'll always be their parent, I don't want to live as anyone's slave anymore. I want to live as an individual. Even though I felt that way, I couldn't completely rid myself of the guilt towards my children. What do you mean, suddenly divorcing? Divorce? Both asked me simultaneously, and Robbie, taking his chance, chimed in. That's impossible, right? Convince her. Robbie, playing the victim despite it being his fault, made it seem like it was 3 against 1. I wanted the kids to understand that this wasn't just my whim. I just filed the divorce petition Robbie had already written. Why am I being treated like the villain when he's the one who prepared such a document? At my words, Scarlett and Oliver looked at Robbie. Robbie suddenly became flustered, looking for an excuse. A bad thing? No way. That was a joke, right? You weren't supposed to actually file it. A joke? Do you have any idea how exhausted I've been from your jokes? Robbie flinched at my raised voice. Scarlett and Oliver silently exchanged glances. Also, for a joke, it seemed too well prepared. It looked like something prepared to convince someone, didn't it? Robbie turned red, spluttering in his attempt to argue back. The kid seemed to realize there was something more to it in an instant, given his panicked state. I couldn't help but laugh at Robbie's frantic behavior. You don't have to be so desperate. It's like you're admitting it's true yourself. What? You set me up? You got mad at my deduction for no reason. Hearing our conversation, Scarlett hesitantly asked, "What do you mean?" I decided it was time to tell them everything. You're not children anymore, so I have to tell you. Robbie and Sally, they're seeing each other. What? Wait, what are you talking about? Robbie turned pale and stood up. Scarlett and Oliver looked shocked for a moment, but then directed looks of disdain at Robbie. I had my suspicions. She used to call him manager, but lately she's been calling him Robbie, and the way she talked about how enviable our happy home was. I started to feel there was something behind her words. That's not, there's no way. I felt like she was mocking us while saying she was envious. A woman's intuition is often right. Robbie, sweating unnaturally, was too flustered to come up with an excuse and fell silent. Though it was partly speculation, Robbie's reaction confirmed my suspicions. It was a shock, not because of love, but because of the betrayal, yet I managed to stay composed. But what really kept me sane was remembering my role as a mother. To think you invited that woman to the wedding? I'm so sorry, Mom. Scarlett broke down crying. Robbie looked hurt by those words, but he had no right to feel injured, and Scarlett had no reason to feel guilty. I only became certain of it yesterday. Scarlett, you did nothing wrong. I comforted Scarlett with those words. Oliver, observing us, sighed deeply and gave Robbie a sharp look. I knew Mom and Dad weren't getting along, but this is just too much. Oliver's disdainful demeanor made Robbie's voice tremble pitifully. I had no choice. She's been pushing me for a divorce, and I had to invite her to Scarlett's wedding to appease her, and the divorce papers. You used me? She said she'd tell the CEO about the affair if I didn't. My fist trembled with anger. After the divorce, she intended to become Robbie's next wife and Scarlett's mother, she had said. That's why she had been invited to the wedding. And after that, he planned to initiate the divorce, showing her the filled-out divorce papers as proof. I never really intended to divorce. Really? Sure, as if you'd let go of your slave. What are you talking about? I would never think that. Robbie desperately appealed to me, but Oliver muttered, But Dad, you always said it'd be easy to marry a woman who does everything you say, like Mom. Uh, you've always looked down on Mom, but never divorced her because you thought that, right? I stood up. Is there any reason I should remain this man's wife? Both Oliver and Scarlett strongly denied there was. Mom should be free now. That's right, and Mom being her mom won't change. Dad will just be someone else to us, Scarlett said, wiping her tears and smiling coldly. After that, we left the house. Oliver, not wanting to stay with Robbie, decided to move into my apartment. The divorce petition had already been filed. There would be a proper division of assets, but for now, getting some distance from Robbie was a relief. A month later, one of Robbie's colleagues came to the real estate agency where I started working. It was Daniel. Isn't that Nancy? Daniel! Thanks for coming to Scarlett's wedding. What brings you here today? Actually, I broke up with my girlfriend and thought about moving to start fresh, so I came to look for a new place. Daniel smiled awkwardly, taking a seat in front of me. Oh, that's too bad. I had heard about Daniel's girlfriend a few times. He seemed to care about her a lot, but it didn't work out. Wanting to cheer him up, I responded with a smile. We found a suitable place, but since it was lunchtime and the viewing agent was out, we scheduled a viewing for another day. By the way, when did you start working here? The manager didn't say anything about it. Oh, is that so? I got divorced. Huh? But, manager, just last week at the dinner with the CEO, you were talking about planning a vacation together. Daniel was shocked. So was I. He's still spouting such nonsense? Surely he would continue to use his family to get closer to the CEO if left unchallenged. I decided to tell Daniel about the situation. Manager and Sally? That's impossible. Daniel turned pale. His reaction was so odd. He slowly began to speak. My girlfriend was Sally. Uh, I involuntarily caught my breath. I had no idea Sally and Daniel were dating. Daniel muttered, unable to forgive them. I silently watched. Nancy, I can't forgive them. I'll tell the CEO. His determined gaze made me nod in agreement. I felt the same way. I wouldn't be manipulated by Robbie anymore. Daniel said he'd come back another time for the viewing and left the shop. I had given him my contact information during Scarlett's wedding. He would surely get in touch eventually. That day, after work, Daniel contacted me right away. Nancy, I told the CEO. His voice was lively, a stark contrast to the afternoon, making me smile. The CEO was furious. Betraying his family and having an affair with a colleague, they will both be disciplined. Really? That's great. Now we won't be used by him anymore. Those two deceived the family, the employees, and the CEO. They were called into the CEO's office, one after the other. I couldn't help but smile, imagining the scene. Even if they were no longer related to me, part of me couldn't stand the thought of them getting away scot-free. Daniel, thank you. You're going to find happiness, I told Daniel. A sentiment I perhaps wished to hear for myself. The affair between Robbie and Sally quickly became known throughout the company, especially Robbie, who had boasted of a harmonious marriage and family, turned out to be a terrible man for cheating with a colleague. He was demoted 3 levels, from manager to a regular employee. No family awaited him at home. A man over 50, it would be interesting to see how he manages from here. Sally, evidently too embarrassed, resigned. I think she was 35. A pitiful woman, middle-aged, unemployed after having an affair with a married man. Their relationship ended as well. Such an unhealthy relationship couldn't last. Sally tried to come back to Daniel crying, but Daniel made it clear he was done with her, feeling refreshed. Seeing him so relieved made me feel the same. Afterward, I continued to live peacefully in the apartment with Oliver. 2 years later, Oliver told me he was getting married. When I thought I would be alone, he said, Mom, live with us. Now I look forward to the birth of my grandchild with Oliver and his wife. Scarlett is struggling as a mother of one, and our family continues to grow, filling me with happiness. I contacted my elderly parents after a long time to tell them about the divorce. They said, bring the kids over sometime. Their forgiveness and gratitude overwhelming me. I want to make up for the sorrow I've caused my parents by being filial and remain a reliable mother by my parents' side, always ready to help.